You ready for a real story? Let's kick back. Bring it.
Okay, kick back. And we are back. And I got a pretty exciting person here with me. Like anything else I've talked about, our guests always bring something to the table, and we always talk about what we put into our personal vault and what we take out of it. We make our withdrawals and we make our deposits during life, and we always try to assess what's going on and where it got us to in our life at this point. And if it didn't get to where we need to go, then we need to reassess what we have in our personal vault. And one of those guests that I have today, like the others we've had on, has definitely put a lot of stuff into his vault. He's deposited and he's withdrawn quite a bit. And through all those life experiences, he's been able to find a lot of different life lessons that have led him to a lot of success. And along the way, he's seen some failures, and that's what we all do. And that's what we all talk about. So with me today is a gentleman that has been around for 30 years doing the life coaching, mentoring. He's lived in Japan. He's lived in Europe. He now lives in the US. He has a book coming out, which we're going to discuss. He even has a movie script that has been written about his life that'll also be put into the works. The name of the book and the name of the man would be Wolfgang Christoph, and his book is Against All Odds. And let me tell you something, the story you're about to hear is one of survival, one of trying to do something at an age that most of us at the age he's going to tell you wouldn't even think about, and what we can do to learn from those things, even at an early age, where he was making deposits at such a young age in a situation that he almost had no control over. And with that, Wolfgang, what am I talking about here?
Well, thank you, Scott, for having me on your show. It's a real honor. And thank you for asking that very important question. We don't understand how life really works. We're just in it and try to react to it the best we can.
We navigate.
Yeah,
we have to navigate.
Yeah, exactly.
And the winds change all the time.
Yeah, exactly. So that's exactly what happened to me back in 1961 on August 13. You heard about the Berlin Wall.
Of course, the Berlin Wall. It's in every history book. For those of us who remember it growing up, it's obviously one of the more infamous walls. I wouldn't say famous, but the infamous wall.
Yeah,
yes.
Yeah. So on that day, imagine that if you have children, you have a little boy about 10 years old having a sleepover at his best friend's apartment, just down the street. And on Sunday morning, the East German soldiers divide the city and you are on the wrong side of the street in a different country. You can't get out. Nobody can get in. Soldiers pointing guns at you, shoot to kill orders, and you're stuck. Imagine the separation anxiety that little boy is having.
So a 10-year-old boy goes over his friend's house for a sleepover, like any of us have done, right?
Yeah.
And you wake up the next morning and there's an actual wall.
Yeah, so we woke up early in the morning because it was so noisy. It was Sunday morning. Usually it's very quiet. And so we look out the window from a 5-story apartment building, and then we see hundreds and thousands of soldiers marching down the street, trucks and bulldozers and cranes.
So there's construction workers there, and probably the Corps of Engineers with the military, I guess, at that time. What military was that?
It was the East German soldiers.
So they were East German soldiers, and they were now erecting this wall?
Yeah, so it wasn't a wall all the way through. They put a barricade up at first and those tripods with razor wire on
the barbed wire,
it,
of course, yeah.
And they put fences up, and then they put concrete barricades on strategic intersections. And then the rest was kind of, improvised, just to create a border. I remember very, very distinctly when we went downstairs out the building, the other side of the street was a different country. And in the middle of the road, there was hundreds and hundreds of soldiers.
So it was a whole country the day before.
Yeah.
And now you're a separate country the next morning.
Yeah. Yeah.
Unbeknownst to anybody, there was no announcement to this. There was
no, that was the whole point. You see, until 1961, between 1951 and 1961, there was about 3.5 million people, leaving East Germany, East Berlin to have a better life in the West. And that created a big problem for the East German government. All the skilled labor disappeared, and they had no one to work the important jobs.
Wow.
So they had to kind of do something about it, right?
Sure.
So there was a lot of talk about, restricting travel and so forth, but nobody really knew that there's going to be a war. One thing we have to understand is after World War II, a little history lesson here. After World War II, Germany was divided in half. Berlin, which is the capital city, was on
Sure.
the
Yeah.
far end of the Eastern Territory. So because it was the capital city, they occupied the capital city, all the allies, the Russians on the eastern half of
Right.
Berlin, and the British in the middle, the French in the north, and the Americans in the southwest. So it was like three allies, Western allies on the western side, which shared half of Berlin on the west, and the Russians on the east. So since it was already part of the Russian occupation, there was no border or anything. On August 13, when they built the wall around West Berlin, which became an island in East German territory.
So the actual wall went around
Berlin
Berlin, the west side of Berlin.
and throughout the entire country from north to south simultaneously.
Wow.
Yeah, and that was unbeknownst. I mean, you have
I don't think people realize when they hear Berlin Wall, they don't realize the complexity
Yeah,
and the immense size and the implications of it.
yeah,
They just know it divides something, and there was East Germany, West Germany. One was communist, one was not.
yeah.
That's all they really know.
Yes.
And
But it was, I mean, thousands, millions of people's families were divided and separated. It was a very tragic situation, and many people tried to escape and failed.
so what happened when they tried to escape? I mean, obviously some horror came from that.
Not everybody was lucky. They had shoot to kill orders. So if you tried to get into East Germany to go back to your family, or you get out of Berlin.
So you would get shot coming in from West Germany as much as you get shot going from east to west.
Correct.
So they didn't want anybody in and they didn't want anybody out.
Right. So they cut off everything and they had shoot to kill orders. So imagine you're coming out of the building, as I mentioned earlier, and we open the door and there's thousands of soldiers, standing shoulder to shoulder, pointing guns at you. I mean, it looked like you're standing in front of a firing squad.
And that was their intimidation to warn you, don't try to cross.
Correct.
Or we're going to shoot you.
Yeah. And many people tried. I mean, I remember one incident. There was a younger couple that tried to jump over the razor wire barricades, the tripods with the barbed wire on top, which was hanging kind of loose.
Yeah.
And it was about maybe 4 feet high,
Yeah.
And so if you're an athlete, you can jump over that. But
sure, it wasn't too high, 4 feet. You could dive over it even if you had to.
But I remember there was this couple trying to jump over and they got caught up into the razor wire and they got entangled. The more they moved, the more they got entangled. And they were screaming and no one was allowed to help them, neither from the east nor the west.
So they were just hanging in the barbed wire?
Bleeding to death for days.
For days. So the soldiers didn't even help them.
No, that was the point.
So
this is what's going to happen. The message was, you try to escape, you die.
And they left them in that wire for days?
Until they're dead.
That is insane.
I still remember, I can still hear them screaming. I had nightmares all the way until I came to America in 1977 about, this whole event.
Well, the PTSD from that must have been immense.
Oh my God. I was escaping every night.
So you're 10 years old witnessing this.
Yeah.
That's incredible.
Yeah.
And actually see two people in razor wire struggling and screaming and no one's allowed to help and the soldiers are just trying to prove their point.
Yeah, exactly.
And now after that happened, did more people try to do something similar?
There are many people tried to escape. They built tunnels. They jumped out of the windows. I saw people making ropes out of bed sheets. Trying to climb down. But climbing out of a 5-story apartment building on bed sheets is very difficult.
Hollywood makes it look easy.
Yes, it does.
The movies make it look easy. So
it's not easy.
It's not. Yeah,
and people failed. They fall down to their death. Smashing like watermelon. I remember there was one scene that I cannot get out of my head. There was a elderly lady. She must have been in her late 50s, maybe, standing on the windowsills on the 4th floor while the soldiers marching up the staircase, trying to get people out of the building because the building was exactly on the border. And so they're trying to get everybody out of the border. Well, while the soldiers are coming up, people are trying to jump out of the window. Well, on the first, second floor, it's okay. You
Sure,
maybe
it's only
twist
about
your
20
ankle,
feet, 10 feet. Yeah.
but in the third or fourth or fifth
Yeah, you're
floor,
getting 40, 50 feet
so
high.
she's standing there on this windowsills, making a decision to be free or living in a country where you don't have that freedom.
Right.
You see, and that decision to jump, just as the soldiers came in and grabbing her, she jumped and
So
she
she
fell to
jumped
her
just
death.
before they got her.
Yeah. And that scene is still in my head. I can still see it. And, you know, uh, that reminded me when 9/11 happened, when people jumping out of the
Oh
burning
yeah, that was horrible. Yeah, that was
Twin Towers,
yeah.
I
It's
had a deja
between
vu,
you're facing death either way. Which way do you want to chance it?
Yeah.
And it's the same.
But you see, in that moment of when you make that choice to jump, that
Right.
is the ultimate freedom. People don't understand. There's this famous Holocaust survivor, Viktor Hugo Frankl. Viktor Frankl. I hope I pronounced his name right.
Right.
He was supposed to go into the gas chamber, and on his way into the gas chamber, he decided that there is one thing that they cannot take away from me, and that is my freedom, my choice.
Right.
And he choose to be free and freely go in if he has to, you see.
Sure.
And so that freedom is a choice, and we all have that choice, but it comes with a price, you see.
It does, and you have to come to terms with that price that you're going to pay because of that choice.
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah.
And
I write about him in my book, so just a little bit, because I needed to make a parallel, because we take freedom so much for granted. We take everything for granted, everything we have, everything we can do, everything we go.
Sure, the entitlements that we see
Everything.
Yeah.
We take everything for granted. Our parents, we take our children, our jobs, everything we take for granted,
Right.
the water that we drink, everything. We don't give it any thought, no thought of gratitude, in a more profound sense of gratitude,
Right.
We don't appreciate what we are actually capable of doing and the freedom that we are having to do it, right? I come from a country where that was not possible. You had no freedom of speech. If, for example, if we were on the street and we meet and we started talking, hey, how you doing, Scott? How's
They would
your
break
day?
that up.
No,
They wouldn't, no?
not immediately. But if we stay there too long, like more than 15 minutes or so, people were starting to circle us. You can tell they're
Now you say
Stasis.
people, soldiers or people?
Stasis.
Wow.
These are the secret police,
Oh, okay. What was that called again?
Stasi.
Okay.
The Staatssicherheitsdienst.
And they would sit there and circle
which
you.
is the secret service,
Now, were they looking to hear what you're talking about?
So yeah, they started taking pictures. They're coming close. They listen to something they hear you say,
Right.
and then they put words in your mouth and say, "Show me your papers." You always have to have your papers, right? Which is your ID,
you
right?
already have ID or papers, and
That's the same ID
Sure,
or paper,
sure.
right? So show you some papers, and then if you don't have it, they arrest you, and then they look at you and they say, "What are you talking about?" "Oh, just family, and we haven't seen each other." No, I heard you say something bad about the government.
And that's where they throw the words into your mouth.
They put the words in your
And
mouth.
they plant that seed to get you to
And
talk
they
to them
know
more.
that you are scared, and then you
Right.
stumble and you say something, and then, "Oh yeah, I know you were saying that, and come with us," and then you get arrested without any warrant.
So those people that get arrested, do you get to see them again, or you think they were arrested and never seen again?
It depends.
Depends. Okay. It depends on what?
It depends on whether or not they believe you or not.
Okay, so they're just trying to pressure you to see how much they can get out, intimidate you till you break.
Most of the time is to intimidate you and to break you.
Right.
So you follow the party line, which was always the big cause. I remember we were pressured to join the Communist Party all the time. Because if you don't have any privileges. When I was in school, I was not allowed to participate in any of the school functions.
And why was that?
Because I didn't belong to the Communist Party.
So you, and now is it you specifically or your family?
My family.
So your family has to belong to the Communist Party in order for you to participate in activities even as a child?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So if there were field trips, or if we go to the museum, or we have summer camp, or any of those dance events or whatever, folk dance and stuff like whatever the school.
So you're excluded.
Excluded.
And then what would so if you don't get to go on a field trip, let's say, to a museum, or did they just leave you at home, or they leave you behind in the school? I mean, you just weren't, what'd they do?
Yeah, if it was during the school time, they left you in school in another class, or they left you at home while other kids are going on summer vacation or, on summer trips.
So what was it like, the relationship with kids who were communists?
You had a lot of more privileges. Your grades were much more favorable. You were getting a lot more hands-on help. The teachers were
So
much
you were
more
getting the
inclined.
edge if you belonged to the party.
You
And
belonged
if you
somewhere.
didn't, even if you did well, you were held to a much higher standard.
Yes.
And even at high standard, they would move the bar.
Yeah. So
Okay.
for the kids, you joined the youth movement, which is during Hitler. It was the Hitler Youth.
Right.
In East Germany, it was called the Young Pioneers. And it's the same outfit, just a different color and a white and a red
Right.
scarf, like the ones in Russia, right?
Sure.
Because it was all modeled after the Russian Communist Party. And that is a little bit different than what we understand what communism is.
Okay.
Because back then, communism was modeled after Marx and Lenin and Stalin,
Right.
So Marxism was not really the forefront of it, but Stalin and Lenin.
They had the greater influence with the
Yes,
communism.
absolutely, because it was absolute control.
Right.
Where at Marxism was more about the socialized economic welfare of the people. Everybody is equal. So
And
that
sometimes
was a
people
little
get
bit
them
different.
mixed up.
Yes, we do.
They combine them together and say, well, Marxism and communism are the same. They are and they aren't, is pretty much what it comes down to. Like you said, one is more based on the socialism part of it, and one is more based on the economic part of it.
Yeah, and the control, right?
Right.
The communism is more under control. It's a doctrine that follows everybody. Like we have the Republicans and the Democrats. It's the same kind of doctrine, just a different name.
Right.
So, but for kids, if you don't belong to the youth group, to the Young Pioneers, you had, you were an outsider all the time.
You were on the outside,
You were alone. Nobody played with you. I had no friends. We lived.
So how'd the other kids treat you? I mean, you have one communist kid and you have one kid who's not communist. How did they interact with one another? How did they get along?
The sense of belonging was extremely high because you, as a child, you don't want to be an outsider. You want to belong. But I was a little chubby kid.
It's like being part of a clique.
Yeah, exactly. So we grew up. I grew up on the far eastern side of Germany, near the Polish border. Small village, maybe 200, 250 people.
Right.
But we didn't live in the village. We lived outside the village, maybe like 45 minutes walk on a dirt road through the forest, to the fields,
right
near the lake. It was a beautiful area. There was like 100 lakes. And it was, in the old days, it was like a retreat for the aristocrats in the late 1900s.
Right.
The Tsar and the Kaiser and all the oligarchs and all the big, aristocrats, they had their summer villas over there.
Okay.
And so it was a very popular area because of the beautiful lakes and the forest. It was great for hunting. It was great for being, secluded.
So it was like an elite resort in a way.
Elite resort.
Resort, yeah.
Yeah. But then after World War I and World War II, it was all destroyed. And the Russians had a very, after World War II, the Russians had a very bitter taste about Western influence and capitalism and affluence and, opulence, right? So they destroyed everything.
They just took it all down.
It was all in ruins.
Yeah.
So the East German government, once it was established, they said, okay, you can no longer have personal property. Everything belongs to the state now. So they confiscated everything, your property, your land, your house, your business, your shop, your butcher, your bakery, everything, whatever you had at a business.
So you say confiscated, did they actually take it away? They just took the ownership of it, meaning that if I owned a bakery, let's say, I own that bakery. Now it was no longer owned by me. I now became a worker only for that bakery.
Exactly. So I remember we were at the bakery, actually.
Okay, well, good thing I grabbed that example.
Yeah, and we were at the bakery, and the secret police came in with some documents, and they told the owner, you need to sign here because, the government decided that this is no longer your private property because it's against the rules.
That's crazy.
So now it belongs to the state. And but you can lease it back for 100 years.
So,
So you become an employee to the state and you own like 2/3 in taxes.
and then they give you a lease on something that you already own.
Yeah.
They take it away and say, hey, if you still want to be a part of it, you have to sign a lease.
Yeah.
Did anybody refuse?
Well, yes, some people did, but they didn't last very long. It was confiscated anyway, and then you were kicked out.
So you had no choice either way. Either you sign
Yeah.
or somebody signs for you, the way we're getting what you have.
Yeah, and if you don't comply, they will take it away anyway, and then you're on your own. They kick you out of the house.
Wow.
Yeah. So there was a lot of in that resort area. There was a lot of empty bungalows and houses from the Westerners who had like their vacation homes over there.
Right.
And then so after this was all kind of divided.
Right.
People still came back and forth until 1961. You could travel back and forth. It was no big deal because, it was still one country, but two different system of governing.
Right.
And so it's like going from Orange County to LA, it was that kind of thing.
Sure.
But then the economy was really bad. And so people went to West Germany or to West Berlin to find work. And the exchange rate was very high. It was like 5-1. And
Wow,
so
that's an incredible strength.
you can work
5-1, yeah.
get a lot of money, for Eastern and live a good life. But that also meant that there was nobody working on the East, So everybody was working in the West and helping the economy on the West, but nobody helped anything out on the East. And
Sure.
the government didn't invest anything. They took everything to build the military and, the secret police and, the infrastructure for the government. But the people suffered. So as a consequence of all of that, they relocated people at random. He said, okay, you can live over there. There's an empty house. You live there.
So they told you where you could live. So not only did they take everything away from you, but now they're assigning you to areas and saying, we need more people over here. So guess what? We need to take you from here now, and we need to populate this area. So now you're living here.
Yeah. So we became farmers overnight. From the city to the farm.
And they said, you know what? You're going to learn how to farm because we haven't got enough farmers. So now you're living over here. Yeah. Here's your new occupation. Here, did they give you the tools even?
No, whatever was there, you have to kind of take it over. Whatever they left.
And then they expected a return on that.
Yeah.
Did they not?
Yeah. Every year they came and they said, okay, this is how the inventory was when we started. Now, 1 year later, they come in and they take an inventory. Whatever you had surplus, that you get taxed on. 60, 2/3.
So 2/3.
Yeah. So people got very creative and, before tax season came in, they buried everything in the woods,
Yeah.
Trying to cheat it. Oh, I don't know. Nothing is growing, we didn't make anything. I'm sorry.
Hiding the goods, hiding the money, knowing you're getting taxed 2/3. That is
yeah. So living about 45 minutes away from the village was really difficult. I mean, I didn't perceive it as difficult because that's the way it was. I never knew it was hard until I moved away and I know how difficult it was. But walking rain or shine, summer or winter, through the snow, and it snowed a lot. Our coldest winter one time was in the early 50s. It was like 40 below zero, like
wow,
huge. It was very, very
That's
cold.
pretty cold.
Yeah. So life was very difficult, growing up. And then,
I mean, you're a young child. I mean, to sort of go from that freedom and then end up with no freedom. Do you remember that vividly, or do you remember really having no freedom and accepting for what it was? Or did you remember having freedom and then yearning for that, even at an early age, saying, oh my God, I had this before. Why don't I have it now?
No, it didn't occur to me because I was way too young. You see, I was like between 5 and 10 years old.
Sure.
You don't have any concept of a social structure, or political structure for that matter. You don't really understand it because in that village, we were so isolated in the rural area where we lived. We were assigned to this little bungalow that was like a summer house from somebody.
Right.
And it had a chicken coop in the back and a goat. And that was our farm, and some rabbits. But
wow,
we didn't have TV. We didn't have radio. We didn't have electricity.
So you didn't know what the outside world was.
No.
You only knew what they gave you and told you.
That's all I knew.
That was it.
And
Did you even get newspapers? Did they have their own newspapers that you could read?
Yes, there's lots of propaganda.
A lot of propaganda in there. So you weren't getting any real information.
No, nothing. Only what they want us to know. I mean, their flyers, their banners all over, red flags in the windows, and I mean, there was just everywhere propaganda posters everywhere, and that's all you know. And then I didn't know the difference until we started visiting my grandmother in West Berlin. She lived in West Berlin, and then there's this. I didn't know about what freedom was until my grandmother, for my birthday one time. I think I must have been maybe 7 years old, and she bought me. Elvis became really popular in the mid-50s.
Sure, that was the time when Elvis was coming out,
and I loved him.
and he was
I had
becoming a big
black
star.
curly hair,
Yeah,
and my mother used to comb my hair like Elvis, that big wave in the front,
Right.
right? And it was so cool, and I loved it. I loved his music and everything. And whenever I had a chance, eventually we got a radio, and we listened to the BBC and
Right.
German radio. And I have to be quiet so nobody can hear us, because you get in trouble if somebody snitches on you. Everybody was a snitch, by the way.
Oh, were they? So everybody, regardless, even if they were your neighbor,
Don't trust anybody.
That-
You have to be really careful.
and that was to save themselves, right?
Yeah.
If they felt they would get brownie points, let's say,
yeah,
if they were to snitch on you and
Yeah.
think that they would get a favor later on, if they did something wrong, go, hey, don't you remember?
yeah,
I snitched on Wolfgang,
yeah,
so maybe you won't be so hard on me now.
yeah. That's right.
Okay.
So we listened to the music, and it was really cool. And then, so my grandmother, she bought me this Levi's jacket, and,
Right.
and blue jeans with a couple rivets in it, and a belt buckle with like a Western buckle on
Right,
it.
right.
I mean, I was so in the cowboy boots, I had like red cowboy boots. And I love always red, right? So, and then I loved wearing it, and when we were in West Berlin, everything was modern.
Sure.
They had
Yeah.
They had
It's a different atmosphere.
They had escalators. They had electric cars, and I mean, there's a lot of cars everywhere. But they had street cars and subways and all that stuff. I mean, it was a modern city, and people walking around with colorful clothing. And back home, everything was black, gray, brown, head down, walking against the wall. Don't show your face. You don't want to be recognized.
That kind of fear that they drummed into you.
Yeah, you just want to be a wallflower. No, you don't want to be noticed. Don't stick out, because when you stick out, they're gonna cut you off.
Wow.
So I'm in West Berlin, and I realized, every time I have to go back, there's a big difference.
Right.
So even though I was happy with my mom living in that little bungalow, life was simple. But I noticed that we couldn't have all the stuff that we could, like chocolate and bananas and oranges, didn't exist.
So what did they have in East Germany to eat mostly?
Potatoes, eggs, pork, beef if you're lucky.
But no candy.
Yes, so there was candy, and
Yeah.
the basic foods,
So that was it. They said this is your diet. This is what we're allowed to eat.
Because there was nothing available. You see.
Yeah, they had no factories for it even, I guess.
Because you see, they didn't have the skill of organizing the centralized distribution system to give everybody what they needed.
Right.
Instead of having everybody working for themselves. I own the bakery or the butcher or the little store on the corner.
Right.
You work for yourself, right? So you make an income. So, but if you don't own that anymore, then the government takes everything and then redistributes everything. They didn't know how to do that very well. And they took most of it for themselves, and whatever was left over, they gave it to the poor,
So they basically said that they took the best of the best and gave you the worst of the worst.
Yeah, like
That's what it comes out to be. Like Korea, yeah.
Like North Korea.
Yeah, it really is.
El Salvador,
When you're bringing these things up, like North Korea comes to mind. I mean, I've never been there, but I've seen enough and I've read enough, and you see these people escaping from North Korea, showing and telling what it's like. You're describing pretty much the same atmosphere.
It is very similar. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, very much so. So here I am, very happy, but I couldn't take it back home to our village,
Right.
Because my mom was afraid that if I ever wear it, we get all in trouble. So she saw the writing on the wall.
So
I begged her.
So you lived two different lives, basically.
During the summertime, I lived with grandma.
Yeah, so you you had to be two different people
Yeah.
and live two different worlds.
Yeah. And then when I was grandma, when we stayed at grandma for the summer, I always stayed with my friend, because he had the best toys.
Right. Oh,
So,
yeah. Oh, of course.
I had more sleepovers with him than grandma because I didn't like grandma very much. She was not a nice person. She always.
Yeah, well, we can't pick our relatives, right?
Yeah.
I mean, that's,
Yeah.
yeah.
So, but one day I convinced my mom to take it home. And so she said, but you can't wear it in public. Yeah, at home, but not outside. I said, okay. One day I couldn't resist. And I took it out and I wear it to school.
Right.
Oh my God. I felt like Easy Rider, I had a bicycle and I drove to school.
Right.
And everybody, as soon as I got into the schoolyard, everybody stopped. And I milked that moment, driving into school. All of a sudden, instead of being the little fat kid that get bullied all the time,
Right.
and all the outsiders, I was somebody.
Yeah, because you had the coolest thing
I had the coolest
amongst
outfit,
everybody
my
else.
hair and
Yeah.
everything. Everybody looked like with the jaw falling to their floor, And here they are, and they're looking at me, and like I was some alien. And I went to the classroom, and they all looked. I was sitting in the back, and everybody was looking back. The teacher had no
Right.
control.
Right.
Everybody wanted to touch me and touch my clothes and everything. So during class, teacher comes back. She comes behind me and she whispers to me and said, "Where did you get that?" And of course, I'm not supposed to say anything. But I
Right.
was so
Yeah. I mean,
excited, somebody is
so, I mean, you're
interested.
young. What do you know? You're excited
Yeah.
about the moment.
I said, "Is she in the West?" I said, "Yeah, yeah."
Right.
So then I was escorted to the principal's office. By then, there was already like a Secret Service agent in the principal's office, and the principal was like Sister Rabiata. Okay, she was like a very stoic person. Let's say,
Right. Right.
tough cookie, right? So they drilled me. Where did you get it? Who gave it to you? Where are you going? What's going on? And then I was crying. I didn't know what to do, but I spilled the beans. And then they took me out into the schoolyard. And they put me right underneath the flagpole, and they ordered all the classes standing in
So they're going to now
formation.
make an example of you.
Yeah,
They're going to say, this is what happens
yeah,
when you don't follow protocol.
yes. And so they put all the classes around in a circle in
Right.
protocol, in columns, right?
Right.
And they put me in the middle there, sitting there on a chair and with my outfit, and I'm looking around like, what the hell they're gonna do, right? And then all of a sudden, the Stasi comes up and he's making a speech that this is what I'm talking about. This is what
you can't be doing.
This is not about our way of life. This is the corrupt West. The imperial West is kind of poisoning our youth and
Right.
blah blah blah. So they gave this big lecture and pointing at me, and I felt like shit.
Well, yeah. I mean,
And then I was falling into my seat, and I was not looking up, and I was scared, and I was humiliated. And then another guy, another teacher, he came up with some shears and scissors, and he put my head down, and he started shaving my head off, and all my hair fell on the ground. And
So they shaved your head?
shaved my head, and I was crying. Oh my God, I love my hair. And then
That's what they did during World War II?
yeah, just shaved it all off, and it was so uneven and choppy, and I looked like, I don't know what I looked like, but
that's
horrible.
insane.
And I was crying, and then they ripped my clothes off, and they took me. I was naked, half naked in my underwear, sitting there, and then they took everything away, and then all the kids starting to throw like sand and spitting on me and rocks, and I was
So is their
humiliated.
version of stoning you for not obeying the rule of law?
Yeah.
And the children wanted to show, hey, we believe in the rule of law too, so we're going to throw it at him because that's the way we're supposed to think.
Yeah.
And it became a mob mentality, basically.
It was, yeah.
And they stirred it up. That Stasi stirred it up.
Yeah.
The teachers reinforced it.
Yeah.
And the kids don't want to be made an example too. They don't want to lose their hair. They don't want their clothes ripped off of them and made to stand naked in a chair below a flagpole. So they're going to say, oh yeah, we're against this too. We're against this too. So they don't have any, like you said, they're the wallflower. No limelights on them. Let Wolfgang have the limelight.
Yeah.
Let Wolfgang be the one who becomes the example.
Yeah.
And that is that. So at a young age like that, they just stood you up.
And then they gave me some leftover lost and found shirt and shorts, and I had no shoes. I had to walk barefoot home. I was crushed. Of course, I got in trouble from my mom, but
Well, yeah, because that brings heat on the family too, doesn't it?
oh yeah.
I mean,
A few days later, a couple of Secret Service people came by in a car because there are no cars. But if you have a car, you must be important.
you must be somebody.
So those two
Yeah.
guys came out with long leather coats, with the big lapel.
Yeah,
pin.
right. That's things you
And,
see in the movie. you know,
Yeah,
that-
and so they came into the house and then they interrogated my mother, and they said, we're gonna watch you, watch out.
so that was their warning that don't let him do that again, or we're coming down on you.
Yeah, it's not about the son, it's about you
Right.
parenting.
Yeah, because you must have influenced your son to do that.
Yeah,
You must have provided him.
yeah, you are a bad mother allowing him to do this.
Right.
So you need to go, go with the program. Or
So how did your mother react to that?
she was devastated, but we never joined the party. So we tried to stay under the radar as much as possible, do whatever we were told, and then just don't make any noise.
So within that, in your relatives, your family circle, like we all have family circles, and obviously family circles have different political views, right? Were there people within your family circle that joined the Communist Party?
We had no one in East Germany.
So
Everybody-
so
nobody
you don't have
was
to worry about that as much. You
Yeah.
just-
So
okay.
my grandfather, he lived in Berlin, and I visited him a couple of times. He was kind of my mentor and
Right.
my hero. But there was no one there in regards to family that had.
So the family core you had stuck to not being communist.
Yeah.
That okay. So that
Yeah.
so that you had going for you that your family drew a line and you were all on this side of the
Yeah.
line
Yeah.
and you were not going to cross over,
Yeah.
no matter how much intimidation you had
That's right. Yeah.
and how much they were trying to do. And they literally put you on display
Yeah.
as the example to the world that you lived in, that
Yeah.
the children to say, hey, this is it.
Yeah.
We mean business.
Yeah, it was horrible. I mean, imagine you living under conditions constantly under surveillance. You cannot say anything you want to say. You have to always watch.
It's like technology today, though. It's kind of like today. I mean,
Kind of,
there's
yeah.
cameras and microphones, and I mean,
Yeah, but this is a different.
you're right. It's a different kind. I'm just trying to make.
Yeah.
I'm trying to make light of it, but yeah,
Yeah.
people, they hear that type of surveillance
Yeah.
and they hear that type of listening. Yeah, what we have going on today, we have things like that, but it's not the same type of thing that you're under
Yeah.
when you're being listened to by the government that's trying to instill their belief in the way they want you to do things and the only way. You don't have a choice.
Yeah. Yeah. So
So
it's a complete control, over who you are and what you're allowed to do.
Sure.
I mean, even though we were sheltered in a way from the big city and from the big propaganda, we lived in a really isolated, by
Right,
ourselves.
right.
So I didn't have any friends. So, and the only contact with other kids was in school, and that was it. And then the rest of the time, we went to West Berlin to visit my cousin,
Wow.
and my
Wow.
grandmother and my grandpa, that was it. That was kind of a treat, so you look forward to that.
Well, yeah, that in itself is like something that gives you motivation to survive
Yeah.
what you're going through because there's going to be a reward, like you said, on the other side.
Yeah.
So you just try to basically hunker down,
Yeah.
become tough as nails for as long as you can until you can go back to enjoy freedom,
Yeah.
until you have to go back and endure again
Yeah. Yeah.
the non-freedom. So yeah.
Yeah. So on that infamous day of August 13, 1961, everything changed. Life changes on a dime.
And that's where it changes permanently
Yeah.
because you don't get the choice of going to get away from it.
Yeah. You can't.
And so now this is August 13th, 1961. Paint that picture for me.
So my mom and I, we visit grandma. We're staying there for the summer, for a
Right.
couple of weeks. I have a sleepover on Sunday morning. They divided the city, and I'm on the wrong side of the street. And, we look out the window, we see what's happening.
The soldiers and the barbed wire and
thousands
the
of people.
barricades.
It was like a big construction zone. We didn't quite, I mean, you see it, but it's so surreal. You don't know, what are they doing, You don't know that they're building a wall. They're just doing something.
And not fast.
Yeah.
And not fast. I mean, it's just incredible.
Well, it came in stages. So
Yeah.
what they did is they first put soldiers up to build
So they had a human wall.
A human wall.
Right.
Behind it were workers to build barricades,
Right.
like a fence.
And those are your temporary barbed wire fences.
Stuff, yes.
Right.
And then behind there were soldiers with guns making sure that these people not escaping. Okay. So there was threefold. So once they had the temporary border, then they built another one behind it that is a little bit more sturdy,
Right.
like more concrete walls or higher fences and so forth. And then it became more and more fortified year after year after year.
And they kept building it bigger and bigger and bigger.
Until it became a maximum security prison with minefields. The wall was like 12, 13 feet tall with a big circular tube on top with glass cemented in. They want to make sure you cannot make it over there.
So they
Then
did
behind the wall, there was a minefield, okay? And then they had electric fences. They had a shooting gallery. They had dogs. It was like a...
So like you said, it's a maximum security prison.
At least 100 yards of minefields around, right behind it.
That's amazing.
And then guard towers, It was like unbelievable.
And I'm imagining those guard towers with the spotlights, and they have ways to look to see if anybody's trying to... Sensors, yeah. I mean, that's...
And they shoot immediately. They don't give you a warning.
So they just shoot. There is no, hey, stop,
no,
halt.
Yeah.
They just shoot.
They let you go, you blow yourself up on a landmine, or you get shot at. Or if you're lucky, they come after you and arrest you, Yeah.
But if you're getting arrested for trying to escape, they're probably not going to be seen again.
No, you end up in some gulag in Siberia, probably, or in some work labor camp,
Because then you become the quote-unquote political prisoner.
Yeah.
So,
yeah, there are some people who disappeared for sure, So,
I mean, were any of them that obviously you did. There was probably people that you knew on a regular basis. All of a sudden, you didn't see them anymore.
Yeah, they disappeared, and you don't know where they went, you see.
And you weren't allowed to ask.
No.
Because if you asked, now you put yourself in the spotlight as well.
Right. So, for example, that one person I know of, I was Catholic when I was a kid. And we had a priest coming because all the churches, synagogues, temples, they were all closed. Religion was absolutely forbidden. Philosophy was forbidden.
And that's because of that it allows people to congregate.
And to think differently.
Yes.
You don't want to have a free thinker.
Right.
You want to have somebody who thinks the way you think.
Right.
And so if you have like open philosophical discussions or philosophy or religion or any other sophisticated consciousness thinking, that is a threat.
Absolutely.
So we had this priest coming to our house and give us, mass and communion and all this kind of stuff. But then he came less frequent, and then he didn't come in black and white. He came in a civilian clothing.
Right.
But somebody got wind of it, and eventually he disappeared, and nobody knew what happened to him.
Nobody knew and nobody asked.
So he probably got arrested on the way home or, to us. And then because it was against the law, he got arrested and, either way put in prison or who knows.
Yeah.
So stuff like that happens,
Right.
So imagine now, here I am on the wrong side of the street, witnessing the entire drama unfolding, people getting killed, they're jumping out of windows, they're getting shot, trying to escape.
Hung up in barbed wire.
Hung up, dying there for days, just screaming all night, the noise and the smell, and the people are standing on both sides of the fence. You can see each other, you can scream at each other, you wave, and you're pleading with the soldiers, this is my husband, this is my wife, let him in or let him out, nothing. And so you see this entire drama unfolding before your eyes, and little by little it started to sink in, I'm trapped.
Right.
What am I going to do? So for me, I wanted to be back to my mom. I wanted
of course.
to be with my mom.
Yeah.
what am I going to do by myself? I mean, what am I going to do all here? Go back home, take care of my little bungalow and the
Right,
chicken.
right.
I have to quit school. I mean, I was thinking all kinds of things. So maybe my friend, will take me in and I can live with them, but they're going to be in trouble because they don't know, all of a sudden they have an extra kid.
So in a way, it's like you're faced being homeless.
I am. I'm between a rock and a hard place. So my mind certainly shifted. I was no longer worried about me, not immediately, but
Right, right.
eventually I was determined. I got to find a way home. I got
At a young age like that, that's how you
I have to
already
go
had.
home. I have to go home. That's
Yeah,
the only thing I could think of. I want to be with my mom and I gotta go. And so I made a couple of attempts, and people standing there and congregating. And I saw people's, and I'm just a little squirt, I'm going between their legs,
right, right.
trying, la,
Trying to
la, la,
be
la.
inconspicuous and
Yeah. And then I
yeah,
saw a little opening, like a gap between one barricade and the other. It wasn't really connected. It was
right, right,
kind of a space in between. I said, that's my spot.
right.
And I walked over there and I made a dash and just as I was almost like 3 feet away, somebody grabs me from behind and pulls me up. He said, not so fast, young man. This big soldier, just picked me up. I said, damn, I was so scared. I said, oh God. I don't know if I was scared or not. I was just so shocked and disappointed that I didn't
Well,
make it.
it's got to be traumatizing. You're almost in a state of like looking out at yourself from above and going, where am I and what am I doing at this point? Like
Yeah.
you said, you don't know if you're so much scared as you are in a almost like a suspended animation
Yeah.
where
Yeah.
you're like, what is going on here?
Yeah.
And observing something this must be a movie I'm watching,
You see,
a bad movie,
and it's really interesting. You're standing among all these people on the east side, right?
right?
And they all go like, what the hell is going on here?
Yeah,
And then you hear people whispering, are you going to leaving? Are you going to leave? Are you trying to escape? Are
right,
you going to stay?
right,
No, we got to stay. Somebody has to stay here and make it right. And then you hear other people say, I'm going to find a way. I'm going to pack and I'm going to leave. How are you going to do that? And then you hear all these voices and then you don't really understand the gravity of the
right.
situation, but you have some kind of an understanding that you cannot articulate. So I had to kind of formulate my own strategies, so to speak, and
Yeah.
I was determined I got to try again, didn't work here. I'm going to walk around the entire wall, and I'm going to find a
Right,
spot.
and you figure why not? Because all the soldier did was grab you out and say, "Not today."
Yeah, right,
And you figure, okay, well, if they grab me again, they'll just say, "Not today."
right,
So you weren't that scared of the ramifications yet
right,
of what could happen.
right. Because I haven't seen anybody got shot yet, that came later.
Right.
A few days later when it became more and more difficult, people tried to escape through the sewers, and then just started to pour concrete in there. And
Oh,
then, they were trapped.
so they would trap people in with the concrete inside the sewers.
Yeah.
Boy, they did everything and anything to make sure.
Yeah, they put grenades in it too, I mean, just horrible. So
Wow.
you witness all these things as a 10-year-old, and you don't understand. You understand, but you don't understand.
Right, right,
So how do you process all this? It's very difficult, but it kind of fueled more and more my desire to go home because I don't want to be here.
right.
And so my friend and his family, they were very concerned and we started talking about this. And I said, I got to go home. I got to go home. And then she said, okay. So we started, doing some reconnaissance. We walked around, we looked
Yeah.
everything, and we took a lot of notes, where things are and how things going. And we noticed that, some areas are highly protected and other areas are not as highly protected because they are natural barriers.
Well, yeah, because you're doing your own, like you said, reconnaissance. You're figuring out where the weak points are for the potential escape.
But I didn't do that so much. I was just, because my friend's dad, he was like a real smart guy, and he was, very much committed to help me get home. So he was the one who was kind of quietly training me. So we went out. We have a river in Berlin that divides the city in some places naturally.
Okay.
And so on both sides of the river, there's a promenade, which was a favorite spot for Eastern and Westerners. to go and have a picnic, go
or
walking,
stroll around or just sit down.
stroll,
Yeah.
and parade in your best clothes on Sundays, and
Right. Right.
have fun. So we went to the river, and we noticed that there's a big fenced off area, just a fence with some barbed wire on top. And then, maybe 100 feet later,
Right.
further on, there was like a guard tower, and then there was the river. So that was a good spot. So my friend and I, we went there every day and started playing ball. And of course, the ball went over the fence a few times. And the soldiers, said, "Hey, can you help us? Oh, please give us the ball." They're young
Right.
kids, 18 to 20 years old,
Right.
and so they didn't like us in the beginning, but later on, I started to bring cookies and hard-boiled eggs and pickles and coffee and, stuff like that, just to bribe them a little bit, to make
So at
friends,
that age, you already started thinking that way.
Well, I wasn't
But even that, but you're going along with it.
yes, that was a good idea,
I mean, you're
to
like
make
thinking,
friends.
I mean, like you said, he's training you to think like an escape artist. And how do I get in with these guards?
Yeah,
And let's offer them some food and coffee. And this way, and they're young men too.
yeah.
Like you said, these soldiers are
Cigarettes,
what?
right?
Yeah, they're young and therefore, they're going to buy into it
Yeah.
with the bribes.
So in the beginning, it didn't work out that well. They're just, leave us alone. We don't need you. But then later on, I came every day and alone. And every time I came, I had some goodies. And then if I didn't show up once in a while, I said, "Hey, where have you been?" Right.
Right,
So
right,
all of a sudden we became closer, not really friends, but
right,
friendly.
right.
And then so for a couple of weeks, it became really good. And then after 3 weeks, we became really close. We chatted a lot, asked a lot of
You know each
questions.
other's names.
Yes,
I
and we
mean,
know each other.
yeah.
And so every time I go there, I report it back to my friend's dad. And then he created all the strategy. And so,
So you did your reconnaissance,
yeah,
and then you brought back the information to your friend's dad.
yeah,
Now he, like you said, is a strategist, so he's now putting the game plan together.
he did. As a matter of fact, he built a scale model because he had one entire room as big as this one, a room with a train set that he built from scratch with
Right,
his son,
right.
with mountains and all different trains and lights. And
So he's a detail-oriented guy.
he's an engineer,
Yeah, so so building models for him.
Fantastic. So he made a scale model of the entire area on the east side and the west side because he was doing reconnaissance every day besides my reconnaissance. And he figured out everything. So, but he didn't let me know what he is doing. For me,
Right.
it was just having an adventure and, having fun because he's interested. He would like to know what's going on, that kind of thing. And then I was gullible enough to just tell him everything.
Yeah, just
And
why not?
and then we went swimming every day. There was a pool, and so we went there swimming, and he created races between me and my friend.
Right.
So I had to practice swimming really
So
bad.
you were basically in training.
I was in training.
You were in training, looking like it was fun.
It was fun.
And then, but just so you're out there throwing ball, becoming friends with guards, bringing food to them, reporting back to the master planner, your friend's dad, and now you're out there swimming, training yourself, getting your body conditioned.
Yeah, I had to. And so, he pulled they put weights under me. I had to dive. I had to hold my breath for a long time. I had to swim underwater for a long time.
So you're like a 10-year-old Navy SEAL.
I was a 10-year-old Navy SEAL, exactly.
I mean,
and I had a lot of fun, and I got really strong, and I got in good shape. And
well, sure. If I was 10 years old and someone would put me through Navy SEAL training, I'd think it was fun too. I mean, not to say that that's fun at the position you were in, but
but
as a 10-year-old, you think like that.
But I didn't know why you're doing this.
Exactly.
Because I had no idea that eventually I'm going to do something outrageous.
Right.
But, that was all part of the training. And then, so he conditioned me, mentally and physically. And
it all becomes muscle memory.
Yeah, it was big, it was like second nature,
Right.
And then, they took good care of me, and they always encouraged me, don't worry, everything will be okay.
Right. Giving you that affirmation you needed, making sure that your fears weren't starting to creep up.
Yeah.
That you maintain this sense of we're doing this for a reason and you're having fun at it. You don't want to keep it, at the same time, there's an ultimate goal here.
Yeah, and I didn't know, you see, that this was the training and the conditioning. I
Right.
just had fun because I thought he just wanted to redirect my mind, get me off my anxiety, to
Right.
get my mind away from being with my mom and separated. But at nighttime, I couldn't sleep. I was, alone laying in bed thinking about my mom, and how bad she must feel not having me and what she must be thinking,
Right.
and what she might be doing, but that was always on my mind. It was horrible. And then I remember one thing that was kind of shaping me how to be more determined, about everything. I remember a day when I visited my grandfather.
Right.
He was an artist. He could do anything. He was like, he could play music. He could, any instrument, he could
Right.
play it. He composed music. He was an artist. He sculpted. He made jewelry out of silver coins, and he built things. I mean, he could do anything. He was my hero, right?
Right.
And one day we were sitting on the veranda and he was drawing some pictures, and I said, "Oh, I want to draw." And he gave me paper and charcoal because pencils were expensive. So we had charcoal.
Right.
And then so I started to draw what he is drawing, which was a porcupine, which was like the Mickey Mouse of the time
Right.
in
Right.
Germany. So we had our porcupine as a mascot. And I tried to draw just the same way. And I said, "Oh God, I can't. This is that doesn't look like it. It's terrible."
Sure.
And he looked at me like, "Don't you ever say that again." He said, "What?" "What you just said." I said, "What did he say?" He said, "I can't." And he just hit me on the head. "What did I just say?" He said, "Don't you ever say I can't." I said, "Why?" He said, "Because when you say I can't, that means you don't want to." And so I
Yeah.
never forgot that. And while I was going through my training, I didn't quite understand what that means, but I remember what he said. And he said that if you say I can't,
It
that
means
means you don't want to. And I wanted to go home.
right.
So that means if I want to, I can.
You can. Yeah.
You see?
Yeah.
And then later on, as I became, old, as I became older and, living in America,
Right.
became a life coach,
Traveling and so forth. Yeah.
I have, realized what that really means. You put your mind to it, you can do anything. And
Absolutely.
if I can do it as a 10-year-old, anybody can,
Absolutely.
you know.
Yeah.
So I think that kind of a mindset as a young boy was very important for me, because it became like a tunnel vision. I had a goal. I didn't know exactly how to execute it, but I will find a way.
Right.
Something will
As
happen.
long as you maintain that you had a goal, the execution part will come.
Yeah.
It will. And you're at that time, or you think about it, you're depositing into your vault at that point.
Yeah,
The
exactly.
training, the thinking, you're not withdrawing yet because you're not sure how you're going to withdraw that out yet.
Yeah.
And now you've depositing, and eventually it's going to pay off. But you're right. You're now putting your focus and your mind on, I know I'm doing this for some reason. I'm just not sure how it's going to play out yet.
Yeah, and you see later on, in my coaching career, I realized that it's okay to have goals, and have a plan, have a,
Well, yeah,
I know what I want,
we need to
because
have
if
a
you don't know
prize.
what you want, then you don't know what to do. So the problem with most people is that they have a goal and then they have this attachment of how it's supposed to get achieved.
Right.
There is an attachment to the way it's going to happen. And I learned at an early age that you have to allow it to happen. You know where you're going. You're already there.
Right.
So you're already there looking back, pulling you in. But if I say, no, I have to do it this way, not that way, then you're going to fail. See, the
Absolutely,
water
yeah.
that comes from the mountain is not going in a straight line all the way to the ocean. It takes the path of least resistance. It goes this way and that way. And if there's a
It
rock, it
redirects,
goes around
exactly,
it and
yeah.
goes redirected
Yeah.
until it gets to the ocean, getting stronger and stronger. So it's the same thing. My goal is the ocean, right? My goal is my mother. My goal is
Right.
to get to the other side of that wall, but I don't know how. So all I had to do is kind of surrender to the idea that it already is. I didn't know it at the time, but
Right.
later on in life, I realized
Well,
that
you start to put the pieces together and you start to put together all the things that you did then and go, this is how it all came together. This is what I was trying to do. And then you applied that to many instances throughout your life.
it became the foundation,
Yeah.
of my entire coaching career, because we all struggle with something. We all have walls in our life. We all have obstacles, right?
Right.
We have challenges, stressful things. We have, whether it's financial or relationships or career wise or health, what whatever struggle it may, could be the traffic, okay?
Yeah.
It could be your neighbor,
Yeah. Absolutely.
we all have something that we don't like, of some kind of an obstacle. But what we most of the time do, we're reacting to it and have this way of fighting it by, we said, I resist it because I don't like it. I am
Right.
against it because I fear it. Or, I have some kind of opposition to it. But the more you're pushing it away, the moment we say no to something or someone, we're giving it power, and that makes us powerless by
Right.
default.
And
And
that's
then we have to create so much more energy to overcome our self-imposed limitation.
yeah.
And so that became kind of the foundation of my entire work, And I think people have to make it a little bit more simpler,
Right. Right.
they try to make it so complicated. There has to be a strategy, there has to be a certain way, and it got to be this way, and it got to be with this language, and it got to be with this strategy.
Everybody's looking for the exact roadmap,
Yeah,
and there isn't. Just like you said, when the water comes down from the top of the mountain, it's going this way, that way. It's going over, it's redirecting. And each of us go over and redirect different ways than somebody else,
that's right.
And so there isn't a perfect roadmap,
It never is.
you know.
The
It-
roadmap, the map will reveal itself once you're on your way. It takes just the first step.
yeah.
The next step will reveal itself. So trust.
It's just like your plan or the plan that your friend's dad was coming up with. There was no perfect plan for you to get back to your mother. There's going to be some redirection and obstacles and some change of plans here. But this is the basics of what we're trying to do here.
Yeah.
And and I think that's what you were getting to is that, you now have to work this plan out. It might not be exact. It might not even work, but you've got to stay focused.
Yeah, and it wasn't really my concern at the time.
Yeah.
Because I trusted. I trusted the process. I know because I loved him. I know that he loved me. He
Right.
cared about me being together with my mom again, to go home. And that was his entire focus. It was my focus. So
Right.
there was no question whatsoever. I was kind of oblivion to this whole thing never working out. It never
Right.
occurred to
Right.
me.
You knew it would.
There was no way. It never occurred
Right.
to me that there may be a problem. And so I trusted him. I trusted myself. I trusted the process. And I said, okay, whatever we're going to do, I will find a way to go home. And whatever that is, it will work out just fine.
There you go. Exactly. Yeah, because again, there's no perfect plan,
Because
but
if
you
I
do know
know,
you're going to succeed
but
in your
because,
mind, right? I
yeah,
mean,
it already did.
yeah,
All I had to do was just execute it.
exactly. Yeah.
And so if I had fear right from the beginning or doubt that it may not work out, I would have never done it, And I'm going to, I don't want to talk too much about it because this is going to be our next conversation.
Yeah.
Because I want to show you how it all ends.
Yeah.
But the lessons are tremendous, you see. When
Well,
you
highlights the book, Against All Odds. I mean, it's the title. I mean, really sums up quite a bit of what you talked about, and what we are going to talk about when we talk again, because we're going to go through a part 2 of this conversation. But that in itself, that book there, your life of young Wolfgang and what he was going through, it was against all odds, but it was against all amazing odds.
Yeah, it's a story about an unlikely hero, And I don't think, I never think of myself as a hero, and I don't
Right.
want to be a hero, actually. I share the story because life can change on a dime. You see, we don't know what life is going to
We don't know. We can't even
we
predict
take,
it.
like I
Yeah.
said earlier, we take everything so for granted,
We
even
do.
every breath that we are taking, right? And all of a sudden that can stop, that can change. And then the question is, what are we going to do about this, right?
Right.
And I think one of the lessons that I have learned in all of this is that we have so much more in life to be grateful for instead of complaining about it.
Right.
We can always point the finger and say, oh, this is bad. I don't like this. I hate you. And this is, why me? But there's always 3 fingers pointing right back at me.
Absolutely.
So what does that
Yeah.
mean? It means that there has to be something within me that reflects that out, and
Right.
I'm projecting my own inner demons onto the world. And now I'm pointing the finger at that. As you see, that's what I don't like. But it
Right.
is me that needs to change. I need to polish myself. I need to find a way. How did it get there? How can I fix this? And how can I make myself a better me? You know?
Well, it's going through the assessment process. Like it's
Yes.
going through, okay, what have I put in? Good and bad, right? We put a lot of stuff into our vault, good and bad, and then we have to assess it. And what we would draw out is what people are going to see,
Yeah.
and what's going to be the fruits of your success and your failure if you don't use it right.
Yeah. Yeah. Especially your failures, because I tell people all the time, and I tell myself, there's value in failure.
100%.
Because if you only succeed, you don't learn anything.
Right.
Because the real lesson comes from failure, because failure tells you that this was not the way it's supposed to be,
Right.
you know? So if everything is good in your life, if everything is perfect in your life, you have no real life experience. You cannot have character without suffering,
Important point.
you see?
Absolutely
You
important
cannot
point.
have
Yeah.
character without suffering. The suffering gives you the opportunity to create that character, the personality, the kind of person that you become. Because only through the suffering can you learn the part within yourself that is the highest.
Right.
If you're already full of it, knowing that you're good no matter what, you got nothing to learn. And,
Absolutely.
so
And for almost everybody, even if they feel like that, the truth is they're not perfect. They're not successful
no,
every
no
day.
one is.
And no one is. But even if someone portrays that as who they are not. And they're tricking themselves more than they're tricking the public or
Yeah, well, the
somebody else
ego is
around
a
them.
funny thing, right?
Yeah.
The ego is really terrified for admitting that I'm not flawless.
Right.
It has to create a persona and then defend it, you know?
It
Like,
defines who we are. Those failures
yeah,
define who we are because we're able to take that failure, overcome it, and makes us better. And it's a building block. It
see,
really is.
yeah, so we look at problems, and obstacles in our life, the walls in our life. If I would have believed that this is the end, I would not be here today sitting with you having this wonderful conversation.
Right.
But I learned that the obstacle, the stress, the wall, the challenge in life
Right.
is never the problem. It's how you feel about that problem. That is the problem. You see, what we are doing is we are projecting our own thoughts onto it. So if I look at this wall, for example, okay, or a person that I'm disagreeing with, it's the person, the wall, the obstacle is not the problem. It just is.
Right.
But now I'm putting a story behind it. I'm creating a story of what that means to me. And then that story creates then a narrative that I believe is true. And then I project that again backwards and say, okay, this is what I see is.
Right.
I'm perceiving it to be that, but that is not true. It always is in itself the same self. I'm just projecting what I think it is
Right.
onto it. And then we have this problem, you see, and the ego loves that. And the more you question it, the more it creates. So, in order to really settle in with your own true self, you have to let go of that ego. You have to kind of let go of what you think it is. You let
Yeah, because
go.
perception's powerful.
Yeah.
Perception's a powerful thing. We all have perceptions, and everybody's perception of what they're observing is different. Even if they say it's the same, it's slightly different.
Yeah. It's
It's
not.
never exactly the same because what you and I perceive this glass of water to be that you have here, we're looking at it and saying it's a glass of water, but we're perceiving a lot of different things about it.
Yeah.
And there's no denying that. But
Yeah,
people do.
it's a good example. Let's assume that it is half full, right?
Right.
So you might say it's half full. I might say it's half empty.
Right.
But which one is it?
Yeah.
You see,
And
that's
there's
our
no right or
perception.
wrong, and there's no right or wrong answer to
Well,
that.
both of them are wrong.
Right.
Both of them are wrong because it's neither half full nor half empty because it is contained in a container. And
Right.
the container kind of gives us the idea of measurement. Let's assume that there is no container and the water would be suspended here in midair by magic.
Right.
We wouldn't have a clue how much it is. So why can't we just accept it for what it is and say, oh, thank you, water?
Water. Yeah.
You see?
Instead of saying it's
In
half
saying it
full
has
or
to be
half empty.
this, like Shakespeare said, there's neither good nor bad, only thinking makes it so, right? Everything just
Right,
is. And so when we accept everything with gratitude as is, I don't have to like it, but I have to accept that this is what it is.
right,
And then I can think about it and say, well, thanks for coming to my attention, but I'm not interested. That's okay.
right.
You don't need
Yeah,
to solve the problem. You don't need to accept it into your own life, but you have to accept that you experienced it and that's what it is. So thank you, but no thank you. And then move
I
on.
see.
So
Yeah,
this will create a much more fluent lifestyle. It creates a better way of thinking, a better way of accepting the world. And if we can do this with gratitude is actually an act of
it's a
unconditional
hard
love.
thing. Gratitude's a hard thing for a lot of people.
Well,
They
it
really,
is, but
yeah,
if we understand what gratitude really is, then it's not that difficult.
sure,
See, we don't really know what it is. We don't know what stress is either. We just know the symptoms of everything. And we treat the symptoms for everything. We don't treat the causation. So I'm more interested in finding out what causes it to happen
right.
and then change the causation, and then you have a different outcome.
If you focus more on the causation of things instead of the symptoms, then you have a better understanding of why you said why something is, and you have that less of the you would just treat the symptom there's always symptoms, right? How many are there, right?
Right.
I mean, it could be infinite. But if you go to the causation, then you're dealing with the root of something, whether it be the root of something good or bad, doesn't matter.
Right.
But at least you're dealing with the root of something instead
Right.
of dealing with, because symptoms pop up, right? They come and go.
The symptoms are the consequence
Yeah.
of the erroneous thinking.
Exactly. And so, we focus on those instead of focusing on, like you said, the causation of something. It distracts us from what we really need to be looking at.
Yeah. So, and this is exactly why I kind of wrote this book, because for the last 45 years, I've been taking the story on the road, to talk about what life was really like growing up in a communist part of Germany,
Right.
politically and socially, economically, and psychologically, because you're always under surveillance and you don't have the freedom that we take for granted over here. And so then I talk about the day of the separation, the planning and the drama. And then, of course, the escape is the highlight of the story,
Sure.
which I'm going to share next time with you.
Right. Right.
But it is kind of the foundation of how we can look at life in every aspect. Every person has a wall in their life. Every
They
person
do.
has an
Everybody
obstacle.
does. I guess.
Everybody has fears and anxieties, and we can all relate to that story in a way. So we can maybe examine our own way of thinking, the way we feel, the way we react, and maybe examine this and say, what can I do to change that and to make me the best version of myself?
And
And
that's a good way to highlight that. What's the best version of ourselves?
yeah,
What is that? Only we can understand what the best version is, even though
yes,
other people have their perception of us. No one can tell us what our best version is.
that's
We
right.
have to
Only
find
you
it.
know.
Only we. That's
And
exactly it.
the biggest truth is that you already know it, but you're afraid to show it
I was
because
going to say that. Yes.
yeah, because we are afraid to show our best self because we are perceiving it as other people think of it as being weak
Right.
or not genuine enough, because it's so hyperfalutin. So it's
We just inhibit ourselves.
yes. But if we make an effort to just be that person who we think we are
Right.
and not be tempted by the ego to prove anything, be natural, be organic, right? We talked about
Absolutely.
that earlier.
Yeah.
So how can you be the as organic and natural self? Well, you give up pretending anything, you don't have to prove anything.
Right.
If you don't like it, you don't like it. If you like it, you like it. If it's good, it's good. If it's not, it's not. Very simple. You don't have to please anybody. But we do that all the time, right? We're pleasing other people. We don't want you to think bad of me.
Sure.
I don't want you to not like me anymore, right? I don't want to lose my advantage,
Yeah.
whatever,
Yeah.
or the influence or stuff
Yeah.
like that, right?
Yeah.
So
Absolutely.
we have all these
Absolutely.
different reasons,
Yeah.
or we want to belong,
So
right?
you discuss a lot of this in your travels, in your seminars that you do,
Yeah.
and it's on your website.
Yeah, it's mymitama.us.
mymitama. So it's
MITA
MITA.US.
.us.
So mymitama.us.
Correct.
And on there, of course, it discusses your upcoming conferences and seminars that you do, events that you do.
Yeah.
Gives a lot of insight. What else is on there?
There are some videos on there, some articles that you can read on.
And I had a chance to visit it. It's great. I'd
Yeah.
love to read some of that stuff.
So as soon as the book will come out,
When is the book coming out next week?
it should be out next week. I just signed the contract. Everything is ready to go.
Awesome.
So
I saw the book cover, Against All Odds.
yeah, it's a wonderful
It's
cover.
wonderful cover.
Pops in your
It sure
hands,
does. It really
very
stands
red,
out.
and a piece of a wall wrapping around.
That's going to go up on Instagram and TikTok. I'm going to make sure of that when we talk about your show coming out.
It's going to be on Amazon and Kindle. It's going to be an ebook, paperback and hard copy, and it's going to be on all the platforms. And it'll
be exciting read for people. They get to read more detail on what the story was sharing. And part 2 will be some more of that story. And we'll get into some other topics as well. But the main thing is that this book goes a lot further into what we've discussed today.
Yeah, absolutely.
Way further, and I've had a chance to read a lot of that. I got the behind the scenes, or I got to read the transcript. I got to read the script for the potential movie about that. So that was pretty exciting.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, and
I had to hold myself back from saying a lot of it because I can't give things away. I have to, if anything to give it away, it's going to be done by you.
Yeah,
that's for sure.
Yeah, but it's okay. We will discuss that next time. But I have pieces of the wall, and I have a lot of pictures on it.
So you actually have pieces of the wall.
I have pieces.
That's.
It used to be a big piece like this, but I handled, for the last 45 years, it broke many pieces now. I have smaller pieces now.
That's crazy. I remember growing up, and of course, President Ronald Reagan had made that famous line, President Gorbachev, take down that wall, and that was the big thing then.
I was in Berlin when Kennedy came. When he came in 1962, I think he came, and I was on the street, and I held my hand out, and he drove by in an open car, and he touched everybody. He touched my hand.
So you got to almost high five.
Oh, man, I didn't
JFK.
touch my hand for weeks, And then I was there at the big plaza at the city hall where he said, "Ich bin ein Berliner." I mean, the entire nation cried when he said that.
Right.
These things, that they are very meaningful to me, because it relates to Berlin, it relates to my childhood, it relates to Kennedy and Reagan and the wall. And so all those pieces coming together, and people have encouraged me to write this book for the last 20 years. I've been,
Well, it's not easy to write a book. I mean, everybody has a life, everybody has a story, but to put that on the paper and into thoughts takes a lot. And you have to really, like you said, look at yourself.
Yeah.
That's where you had to look at yourself when you wrote this book.
Yeah.
And to see, okay, what am I made of here?
Yeah, it revealed a lot. When I was starting to write, I remembered things that I've forgotten a long time ago.
Right.
I mean, I was 10 years old. That's 65 years ago.
Yeah. So you're bringing up all these old emotions, all these old memories, and some of them aren't so old because life goes by so quick. Some things seem like yesterday, no matter how young you were. But other things you really have to, really dust off the cover.
Yeah. So the interesting
and open that box.
The interesting thing is I see a lot of parallels today from what I have written in the book.
Right.
In certain situations, the way the world is, changing, I see a lot of parallels. A lot of these playbooks are.
I bet you do. I bet you do.
So similar. I was in Berlin in 1961. I was also in Prague in 1968 when the Russians took over the Baltics.
Right.
And I barely made it out of there. So I've seen the playbook repeat itself over and over, and so.
Well, history has been repeating itself for thousands of years.
Yeah.
Just a different name on the ruler of the time. Goes back 3,000 years ago, when you had the Egyptian Empire, the Olmec, the Assyrian, so you have, all they did was change names and change. So these tactics and these playbooks have been played out over and over and over again. So, and to get that insight now from your book is for people to read that. I hope they get a chance as soon as it comes out, and
Yeah, one of the
you've been
interesting
wonderful.
parts that I wanted to write about is how the wall came down, because there was a movement, Russia
Sure,
was
I remember that. Yeah,
financially broke. They had no leadership. There was a leader every week, a new one, and there was Boris Yeltsin, and there was Gorbachev,
yes, I
and
remember that. Yes,
there was all these people. They got all
yes,
assassinated, one after the other, and then nothing really worked. And so there was no support from Russia for East Germany, and then there was this big movement of liberating yourselves and demonstrations, and less and less opposition, and
right,
people got more emboldened, and it became a movement, and then all of a sudden Hungary cut the wires, and people left through Hungary to
right.
Austria, and then the freedom trains came and all of that. So I write about this, how this all worked out. So I think it's important to know, because it's not just one thing, it's a lot of
Yeah,
things
it's
that
a combination. Yeah, I
that
mean,
needs to be addressed. And so I don't want to, beat a horse to death, but
but we'll get into that next time for sure, and we'll learn about the escape as well, which people are going to want to hear that. So that won't be too long after this episode of
yeah,
Kickback.
yeah.
You were able to grace me with I like Woodford Reserve whiskey, and you brought a bottle. That's why it's on this table here. For those of you that are only listening, this is what I've gotten. It's a nice Distiller's Selective Woodford Reserve. So thank you very much, Wolfgang, for that. I'm very
I'm just
excited.
so honored you having me on your show, and
Yeah.
looking forward to talk to you soon again.
Yeah, absolutely. So until next time, we'll have you back. And the story is amazing. We had a chance to kick back, as we say, and discuss this. And we look forward to next time.